Hi, I'm Bruce Mitchell. This is my show at Gallery Route 1, Coming Attractions, and this is one of my new pieces called Metropolis. It's a portrait of mixed woods and an exciting new direction for me, and I'm just happy to show you the rest of my work. And this is a show that's been planned as a kind of a retrospective of my work. And over here, we'll be looking at the oldest piece in the exhibition, titled Fin Spin. This is made in 1998, and I decided I wanted to do a retrospective with some older pieces to give a kind of a historical context to the work. And this is from a series that I did starting back in the mid-90s, and a very challenging kind of form technically, but the idea of it sort of came from some old Chinese bronzes from centuries ago, and it's a real tour de force of technique and aesthetic, and it's part of a genre that I might revisit at some point. So next, I'd like to go take us over to Standing Stone here, made of curly redwood. This is a piece that I started actually 20 years ago and left it to sort of hibernate and gestate in my brain. And I completely retextured it, and it's part of a series that sort of emblematic of my love of standing stones, the megalithic structures virtually all over the world that societies considered so important to record the passage of time and the seasons and the movement of planets that were so important to so many rituals in the ancient times. And I think next we could go over to a cousin to this one, more recent piece called Solstice Stone. Again, in redwood, and solstice is, of course, have always been these significant passage points for winter and fall and spring, and they really kind of are emblematic of that period of human history when stone was a significant material, the very long-lasting one, of course, that people made these wonderful monuments from. Next, I'd like to look at these three fish, which are about the same vintage as this cheek-to-cheek sculpture, also in curly redwood. This is from about 6 years ago. And some of the inspiration came from a number of different sculptors and painters, like Gustav Klimt's The Kiss and Brancusi's statue of the same title. And above cheek to cheek on the wall here are these three fish made of eucalyptus. They're of a second sort of variation. The very earliest ones I made without any paint on the fins, and I decided to add the paint because it made these flat pieces, look more three-dimensional. And I made a number of these, and they're just really playful. I haven't keyed them out yet. Sometimes they call them tuna sharks. You can make up your own name, but they're really fun, and they really. This is the first time I've seen this many of them on a wall, so it's really kind of exciting to see them sort of swimming in a sense and having this interaction together. Um, and next, I'd like to look at a cousin to the Metropolis piece that we saw at the beginning, um, over here on the wall. It's titled Random Weave. And using the same technique and materials as Metropolis, I designed this. This is really an homage to a dear friend who passed away a couple of years ago, um, um, who was an expert weaver, and this technique of wedge weave was developed in the 1850s by Pueblo weavers. And I just love the hypnotic rhythm that these various colors have in these ascending, descending shapes. And I've been a lover of textiles for a long, long time. So when I just saw these pieces of wood that I had stored for one day when I might want to use them, the idea just started to appear, and I just sketched this out a little bit on the plywood that everything's assembled on, and just started from the center and went out. And I kind of did the same thing with valet parking, which is actually the first in this series of new wall pieces. And this is curly redwood. And the title valet parking just was one of those sort of some, funny whimsical things that just popped in my head. Humor is one of those really important food groups for me. And it just, when you see how they park some vehicles where there's absolutely no space between them, you wonder how they pull it off. So this is kind of a tribute to valet parking attendants in a sense, but also just having a very spontaneous flow of working with different sizes, shapes, and dimensions. I love the abstract feel and how asymmetrical it is in a sense in terms of the arrangement of pieces, just like it's the Metropolis piece on the other wall. And one of the most recent sculptures, I actually just finished this last week, is Threescape, and also from curly redwood. And this piece is just, I've done one like this, very much smaller, that's in our home. And my wife and I were looking at it the other day, and she said, you should make this really big. So, when she said that, it was sort of like, well, there's a gauntlet that'll be fun to pick up. And so I had the material and just went ahead and the idea of this sort of is like, Devil's Post Pile, these places where you see these giant stones that have slipped down, broken off and slipped down between two other stones. So where it just looks like just the friction alone is holding that middle element in place. And I sort of like that illusion of how is this thing not falling apart. So that sort of gives it a really interesting sort of way of projecting how could that still be not three pieces lying on the ground. So one of my kind of principles in pieces, especially sculpture, is to use what I call an asymmetrical balancing act, where when I do something on remove some material and change the positive and negative space in one area, then it really kind of affects everything else. So I'm constantly rotating the piece or pieces to get a sense of how everything works together. And so that's sort of the origin of that piece. And one of the other great things in this show are these new prints. And middle of last year, a friend of mine, who's an interior designer, wanted to have some wood blocks to make to print some wallpaper for some clients. And I said, "Oh, I can make some blocks for you." So I had some left over after I made her a set and started experimenting. First with crayon and then with ink on rice paper. And so these are just really kind of playing with ideas that sort of emerge, and the blocks themselves have this fixed shape and design. So my ideas for these shapes and forms really come out of the blocks themselves and moving them around, and I have multiple, so I can sort of it's like a checkerboard or a chessboard, just moving things around to see what really works. And then this piece, Waveform, which is on the poster and the postcard for the exhibition, I've used color pencil, and it was the first time I'd started using color in these prints. And what I found just experimenting with different colors on some paper of the exact kind of rice paper was just making these little duets of colors. And when I came upon this blue and this sort of mauve-ish pink together, there was something just electric in just the two of them being close together. And it was almost like this neon glow. And so they were the perfect colors to outline these shapes with each other and sort of frame them. And these two prints here were the next to come. And these are actually using crayon and colored pencil. And the crayon is so versatile because it not only produces the image, but I can work pretty quickly because I don't have to wait for ink to dry before I move the blocks to the next area that I'm going to rub the crayon on. And again, just using the blocks and experimenting with different ideas and patterns. They feel like these different rivers that are flowing in different directions. And so the title of each one is called A Crossing. And it's like two separate river systems just meeting at a bridge. And I just like that whole image because crossing, I mean, in terms of how we cross bridges to get to the other side, you know, it's that sort of symbolic of taking a step into a new phase of our life. I mean, you can take that in lots of different directions. But again, the rice paper, and what I've done with the rice paper prints is to mount them on black because the rice paper fibers just really pop out when the black is behind them, and it gives a more three-dimensional quality to the whole print, and which for doing two-dimensional work is you know, something that gives it a whole other dimension. And I think there's one more piece here that we haven't looked at. Yes. there's two works here. This one called Mesozoic Backbone. It's from the same period of time, about a year or so ago, that I made valet parking of that curly redwood. And again, these were just scrap pieces from a larger project that I saved. And I just started to place them on a table and see what it looked like. And then this idea just, as they do, it just showed up and said, oh, let's do this. This will be fun. And so this last piece or pieces, I called it twins. I acquired these two camphor wood slabs, book matched. They came from a huge tree in Berkeley that had to be taken down on a street. And a dear friend of mine who passed away a year and a half ago had acquired this tree and had it sliced into these boards. And as you can see, just the way I've arranged them, that there are these flowing patterns that sort of mirror each other. And my idea of bringing these is to show people what they could do with them, either just standing against a wall or as a headboard or a panel, room divider. And they really need to find a home where that kind of piece or pieces would really work in terms of the interior. And this really shows just how incredible nature is. And I mean, nature is really the source of everything. And just to see that this really gives such a portrait of the life that a tree experiences with different stresses and climate changes, and it's just something that I just hope will inspire someone to do something really wonderful with them.
I'm Karen Rose, and this is my border painting show. Behind me is one of my Mexican border paintings. I'm half Mexican, and for several years I painted from landscapes out of movies, but this particular painting is actually based on my own photograph when I was driving across the country to move back to California. Here is another painting from that trip. This is in Texas. The other one was in California. And you can see the border wall running right up over the mesa. And over here is one that is actually based on the movie Sicario, one of my favorite movies, and shows the border wall. So I was painting out of all these movies, but I'm really involved in following the news and all the wars that have been going on. So I started looking at photographs printed in the news, but taking out a lot of elements like soldiers or tanks, etc., and just focusing on the landscapes. So these are all based on the backgrounds of news photos for Israel, Gaza, and one for the Ukraine. And one of the reasons I was so taken with or compelled to paint those works is because I traveled to Morocco with 40 teachers a couple of summers ago, not long before October 7th, and we were studying historical peace represented in Morocco. And I do have one painting that's also of Syria, based on a news article that I read in the New Yorker about the encampment called Al Hol. And so I had looked up several news photos to compile that piece. And all of these pieces from Israel, Gaza, and the Syria piece, the color palettes are based on the post-apocalyptic anime movie called Akira, which has a lot of black with really strong colors with it. Lastly, I included these paintings of the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. And the reason that I included them in the show is that because I was in Morocco for the purpose I stated earlier, they represented to me this kind of utopian ideal of peace that I wish we could reach. So the color palettes are like very calming and kind of ethereal.
I'm Zulu Heru. I'm currently a Gallery Route 1 Fellow of 2025, and this is my inaugural show, Rule Number 2. Backstory about me: I'm a sculpture artist from Richmond, Virginia. I currently reside in the Bay Area, San Francisco. I'm a sculptor, and I primarily work in the medium of metal, stone, and industrial parts. Most of my work is centered around African masks and faces. I use the materials to bring out the story of vocation and labor and the workers who developed and built these parts, and tell the story of what they might have been experiencing as they developed these items that we use for utilitarian reasons. Most of these things are not just for utilitarian use, but they have a life afterwards. And I repurpose them, reclaim them, and reimagine them in the form of art. And they tell my story. My story as an artist, my story as a traveler, my story as a soldier recovering from post-traumatic stress, and redefining who I am through art. And I use this as my way of expressing myself in some ways that words can explain. I try to make everything out of metal, or at least have some metal attribute. So these masks, the maps are actually, the focal point is the dog tag, and the map is just a metaphor for traveling and the places you'll go in life. And the dog tag are milestone moments in my life, the character building aspects that made me the artist and the person I am today. The show is called Rule Number 2, and it's about not getting lost in the journey of art, not getting lost through the trials and tribulations of life, and staying focused on your divine purpose and what you're called to do. And I'm just sharing my intimate stories of how I got to be the person I am, which a lot of, you meet artists and you see their work and you don't get to fully understand the backstory about them. So this is my way of just being more intimate with the audience, and I'm grateful to be able to share my story with you all.